Making headlines this hour, MNDF Staff Sergeant First Class Mohammad Mahdi, who passed away after becoming critically ill while diving during a rescue operation for the missing Italian divers, has been laid to rest with full military honors. The local government authority reports that the swearing-in of newly elected local council members and the signing of official declarations by representatives of the WDC have commenced. According to the April Economic Update report released by the Modest Monetary Authority, lending to the private sector by commercial banks have expanded over the course of this year.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to PSM News in English with me, Hafiz Abdul Sattar. Now the news in detail. The Maldives National Defence Force MNDF Staff Sergeant First Class Mohammad Mahdi, who passed away after becoming critically ill while diving during rescue operation for the missing Italian divers, has been laid to rest with full military honours.
The MNDF Coast Guard Maritime Rescue Coordination Center (MRCC) had received reports at approximately 1:45 on Thursday that 5 Italian divers had gone missing while diving in Wavu Atoll. Subsequently, the MNDF launched a rescue operation to locate the divers. Of the 5 missing divers, the body of one individual was recovered underwater at approximately 6:13 on Thursday by divers from the safari vessel assisting in the operation. Staff Sergeant Mohammad Mahdi was one of the divers who took part in the high-risk search operation to find 4 missing divers in Wavu Atoll. He passed away due to decompression sickness while being treated at ADK Hospital. The funeral service was held at the Islamic Center, with hundreds of participants paying respects to the late Staff Sergeant First Class Mohammad Mahdi. This includes President Dr. Mohammad Muiz, cabinet ministers, and other senior government officials. The coffin of the deceased was transported to the new cemetery in a specialized vehicle with a ceremonial 7-gun salute carried out to pay respects. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz handed over the national flag placed over the coffin to the family of the deceased.
A team of 3 highly experienced Finnish divers arrives in the Maldives, dispatched by the Italian government to assist in the ongoing search operation for 4 missing Italian divers near Wavu Atoll. The specialists arrived with a comprehensive diving equipment and immediately coordinated with local authorities to assess the situation and plan the resumption of the search effort. Chief Government Spokesperson Mohammad Hussein Sharif confirmed that the Finnish team met with Maldives Coast Guard officials upon arrival. During the briefing, strategies for resuming the suspended search operation were thoroughly discussed. Hussein Sharif indicated that the operation would recommence following careful evaluation of the conditions and coordination between the international team and local rescue personnel. The search operation was temporarily suspended after a tragic incident resulted in the death of a Staff Sergeant First Class Mohammad Mahdi, one of the most experienced divers belonging to the Maldives National Defence Force MNDF Coast Guard. His death during the rescue attempts has underscored the dangerous conditions of the search area near Wavu Atoll. The original disappearance was reported to the MNDF Coast Guard Maritime Rescue Coordination Center at 1:45 p.m. on 14th May. Upon receiving notification of the missing divers, the MNDF launched an extensive search operation utilizing both maritime vessels and aircraft. The missing group consisted of an Italian diving instructor and 4 accompanying divers who had been exploring underwater in the Wavu Atoll region. So far, recovery teams have located the body of the Italian diving instructor. The government has taken administrative action by withdrawing the operating license of the vessel associated with the divers, pending a further investigation into the circumstances surrounding the incident. The local government authority reports that the swearing in of newly elected local council members and the signing of official declarations by representatives of the women's development committees have commenced.
While the majority of these events were conducted, the authority noted that specific cities and islands scheduled proceedings at varying times throughout Sunday. The coordinated effort overseen by the local government authority began at 9 a.m. with simultaneous ceremonies across various islands. Judges and magistrates administered the oaths for representatives entering the 5th legislative term of local councils. Following this procedure, members of the nation's 5 city councils will take their oath, while corresponding Women's Development Committee members sign their official declaration. According to the local government authority, 677 of the required 678 councillors were successfully elected prior to the inauguration, and 676 formally took their oaths. Administrative arrangements for the remaining official will be finalized later. Concurrently, 673 members were elected to the Women's Development Committees, which also required 678 representatives, with 662 formally inaugurated. Once officials take their oaths and sign declarations, local council will convene to elect deputy mayors and council vice presidents, launching the 5-year legislative term. Women's Development Committee members will similarly elect their vice presidents. The authority highlighted that these bodies, operating under the Decentralization Act since the inaugural ceremonies of 26 February 2011, are legally mandated to fortify decentralized governance.
The Minister of Defence and National Service, Hassan Rashid, reaffirms the government's commitment to ensuring that every young person in the Maldives who wishes to participate in the National Service Programme has the opportunity to do so.
The minister delivered this assurance during the graduation ceremony of the second batch of the National Service Programme held at the Maldives National Defence Force MNDF Composite Training Centre in Maafilafushi, Laviani Atoll. Addressing the graduate cohort of 344 students who successfully completed the intensive 3-month training programme, Minister Hassan Rashid highlighted the significant progress achieved since President Dr. Mohammad Muiz announced the initiative in 2024. The program, which was officially launched on the 1st October last year, represents a concerted effort to revive the spirit of nationalism and pride among the nation's youth while equipping them with essential life skills. The minister revealed that 2 additional batches, each comprising 350 students, will be conducted for the remainder of this year, demonstrating the government's sustained investment in the program's expansion and accessibility across the islands. The second batch commenced training on the 31st of January, drawing 350 participants from 112 islands across the Maldives. Of these, 344 successfully completed the program, representing a remarkable commitment from young Maldivians representing the nation's diverse geographic area. The graduation ceremony featured a formal resolution and a march of honor, celebrating the accomplishment of the graduates who have undergone comprehensive initial training designed to transform them into responsible citizens and capable individuals. Minister Hassan Rashid urged the graduates to honor the expectation of their parents and communities while making meaningful contributions to society. He emphasized the importance of unity and cooperation among citizens regardless of their varying living conditions, encouraging the graduates to apply the skills and training they have acquired throughout the program.
According to the April Economic Update report released by the Maldives Monetary Authority, lending to the private sector by commercial banks has expanded over the course of this year, driven by credit growth across industries that play a vital role in the broader economy.
The growth rate for credits and loans extended to the private sector stood at 13% in February before accelerating to 14% in March, the authority's report indicates. Credit distributed to the core sectors of the economy, including tourism, construction, personal borrowing, commerce, and real estate, experienced a broad upward trajectory in March. The financial report details the most substantial expansion during this period was observed in the volume of capital directed towards the tourism sector. Credit allocated to that specific industry grew by 12% in March, allowing the tourism sector to maintain its position as the holder of the largest overall share of total credit issued by the nation's banking institutions. The central bank's finding shows loans dispersed to the tourism industry accounted for 34% of all lending during this time frame. The report also indicates the primary catalyst for this elevated credit allocation within the tourism sector is a surge in financing issued for the development of new resort properties alongside loans provided for the renovation of existing resorts and guest houses. The bank has similarly disclosed a significant portion of Bank of Maldives' lending portfolio is dominated by financing directed towards the tourism industry. The bank noted within this specific sectoral lending, the volume of loans issued in US dollars remains notably high.
The State Trading Organization, a state commercial enterprise, approves a dividend distribution of 5.51 per US dollars per share. The company announced following a financial year in which the organization recorded 1.01 billion US dollars in revenue and secured 49.49 million US dollars in net profit.
The resolution was passed through a shareholder vote during the company's annual general meeting held Saturday evening, marking the 25th anniversary since the organization first began selling shares to the public. Hosted at the Dusit D2 Fedu, Maldives, the gathering drew 263 shareholders, consisting of 176 individuals attending in person and 87 by proxy. The distribution represents the highest profit distribution to shareholders in recent history, according to the organization, which distributed 5.19 US dollar per share in the previous year. During the proceedings, the minutes for 2024 were formally approved alongside the audited financial statements for 2025 and the director's report. Ernst & Young was appointed as external auditor for the upcoming year, and Mohammad Ahsan Salim was elected by shareholder vote to represent general shareholders on the board. Because the company has conducted business in a sustainable manner over the past 60 years, its shareholders receive a substantial profit, Shimad Ibrahim, the company's managing director, noted while speaking at the meeting. For those who purchased the initial share, their capital has now increased by 500%, Shimad added, noting that the investment made by the organization are secure against inflation. The company is currently operating under a 5-year strategic action plan, the organization stated, with expanding the business and increasing profit further remaining a primary objective.
The Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Bank of Maldives, Mohammad Sharif, assures the public that customers' dollar deposits have not been used to settle government debt.
BML CEO made the remarks during an interview on a program aired by PSM News. The government recently announced that it had repaid 974 million US dollars in sukuk, swaps, and loans within the past 40 days. Following the announcement, some individuals alleged that the repayments have been made using funds deposited by bank customers. Responding to the claims, Sharif described the allegations as false and stressed that safeguarding customer funds remained the bank's highest priority. He noted that around 70% of bank deposits have been utilized to provide loans and affirmed that no customer funds have been allocated towards government borrowing. In April, the government successfully repaid 500 million US dollars in sukuk raised on the international market in 2021. The Ministry of Finance and Public Enterprises stated that the sukuk was settled through a combination of funds from the Sovereign Development Fund (SDF) and state reserves. The SDF is financed through revenue collected from departure and airport development taxes. According to the government, the fund's foreign currency balance has now exceeded 350 million US dollars. Meanwhile, the Maldives' official reserve reached 1.3 billion US dollars in March, marking a historic high for the country's finances.
The Commissioner of Police, Ahmad Muhammad, has departed on an official trip to Egypt to strengthen security ties between the Maldives and Egypt and boost joint initiatives. The Maldives Police Service has informed that the visit is organized by the Consulate General of Maldives in Cairo from 17th to 21st May. Also, a Memorandum of Understanding MOU will be signed for collaborations on security matters and combating cross-border crimes. During this visit, discussions will be held with senior officials from Egypt's National Security Sector, NSS. There will also be visits to rehabilitation and correctional facilities and training centers relevant to police services. This visit would deepen bonds between the Maldives Police Service and the Egyptian Interior Minister. The Maldives Police Service added that there will be increased works for cooperation regarding security and legislative matters involving both countries. The Health Protection Agency HPA says that Maldives is closely monitoring the latest outbreak of Ebola after the World Health Organization declared a public health emergency in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda following the rapid spread of the deadly hemorrhagic fever that has already claimed dozens of lives in the affected regions.
The declaration comes as health authorities struggle to contain the outbreak, which has spread across multiple provinces and crossed international borders for the first time in the current epidemic. While officials have emphasized that there is currently no threat of a global pandemic, they have warned that the risk of further spread to neighboring countries bordering Congo remains extremely high. HPA confirmed that Maldives is closely monitoring the situation in connection with the spread of Ebola, although no cases have been reported in the island nation. The agency has indicated that appropriate precautionary measures are being reviewed and prepared should the need arise to protect public health. According to the World Health Organization, as of 16th May, around 80 people are suspected to have died from the disease in 3 affected areas: Bunia, Rwampara, and Mongwalu in Congo's Ituri province. The organization has reported 8 laboratory-confirmed cases and 246 suspected cases across the affected regions, while the Congolese Foreign Ministry has confirmed the 80 deaths in the new outbreak in the eastern province. The actual toll is expected to be higher as investigations continue and more samples are tested. This outbreak marks the 17th recorded occurrence of Ebola in Congo, where the virus was first discovered in 1976 near the Ebola River, from which the disease derives its name.
Gasoline and diesel prices at the pump in Cuba nearly doubles. Although filling stations open to the public in the capital were still largely closed amid a U.S. oil blockade that has strangled supply and led to strict rationing.
The Ministry of Finance and Prices earlier this week announced that the new pricing scheme would be unveiled, saying the update was necessary to reflect the actual cost of importing gas and diesel. Signs in some Havana gas stations indicated a price of $2 per liter of premium gasoline, up from $1.30 previously. Regular gasoline increased to $1.80 from $0.95, and diesel went to $2 from $1.10. However, the stations were closed and the government has not said when fuel at the new rates will become available. Motorists in Cuba, most of whom have gone for months with little if any fuel, said they were frustrated by the uncertainty. Cuba has received no oil shipments since the Russian tanker Anatoly Kolodkin delivered approximately 700,000 barrels, roughly a couple of weeks' worth for the island nation of 10 million people, in late March. Officials said that fuel ran out in early May. The United Nations has called the U.S. fuel blockade on Cuba illegal and says it infringes on Cubans' human rights.
Former Health Minister Wes Streeting says that he would challenge British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in any leadership contest held days after stepping down and urging Starmer to set a timetable for his departure.
Streetin told a conference of the Progress group of Labour supporters who view themselves as being on the modernising wing of the party that they need a proper contest with the best candidate on the field and that he will be standing.
Firstly, I do have support in the parliamentary party, but this week I also had a choice. We could have rushed straight into a leadership contest, knowing not all of the candidates would be on the pitch, that Andy Burnham was about to stand in a by-election, and that if we had rushed ahead without giving Andy a chance to stand, the new leader, whether it was me or anyone else, would lack the legitimacy.
Late on Thursday, Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham said he was standing for election in a newly vacant seat to return to Parliament, a precondition for him to be able to challenge Starmer as Prime Minister. Starmer has rejected calls to step down after his party suffered a heavy defeat in local elections last week. Labour Party rules require each challenger to get support from at least 20% of the party's members of Parliament before being able to trigger a leadership election.
Netherlands and India elevates bilateral ties to the level of a strategic partnership as leaders of both the countries sought to strengthen cooperation in areas including defence.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held talks with Dutch counterpart Rob Jetten during his visit to the European country.
Together we can drive ambitious innovation to strengthen both our countries in clean energy, water management, defence and in high-tech and semiconductor industries. And some of these areas may be new to our bilateral relationship, but our cooperation itself is not.
Modi is currently on a 5-nation tour. The trip follows Modi urging a series of measures including fuel conservation, fewer imports and gold purchases, as well as reduced travel as a surge in energy prices takes a toll on the country's foreign exchange buffers.
Gamba Osaka denies Cristiano Ronaldo a first major trophy in Saudi Arabia with a 1-0 win in the Asian Champions League 2 final at Al Nasr's home stadium.
Deniz Humet's goal at the half-hour mark proved the only difference between the two sides as Al Nassr couldn't come up with an equalizer despite dominating possession and having the lion's share of chances. Ronaldo was eyeing his first piece of major silverware since moving to Saudi Arabia 4 seasons ago and first continental title since lifting Europe's Champions League trophy with Real Madrid in 2018. The Saudi Pro League title is still within reach, however, and the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner will avoid a trophyless season if Al Nassr beat Damak on Thursday. For the Japanese outfit, it's the second continental title to add to their 2008 Asian Champions League victory.
A London startup tries to turn city walls into living infrastructure. Using moss-covered panels, it says can help clean air, dampen noise and bring more nature into dense urban spaces.
Often considered a nuisance to be scraped off roofs and driveways, moss is both beautiful and useful, says Nikki Naidu, founder of Alive Labs.
Yeah, moss gets a bad rep. People often scrape it off their roofs, off their driveways, but moss has intrinsic beauty. You know, Japanese moss gardens are wonderful. They're revered, and we want to bring that beauty of moss to our cities. So we like to think of church gardens covered in moss, beautiful cemeteries, and you know that phenomena exists in our urban environment. And so we've taken that and simply designed it with intent.
Alive Labs, based in East London, has developed a living wall system built around what it calls terranite, a proprietary mineral substrate that the company describes as bioreceptive concrete designed to support moss growth on architectural surfaces. The company says the panel can be used indoors and outdoors and require less maintenance than conventional green walls because moss does not need soil, pruning or pest control. Mosses anchor themselves to surfaces and absorb water and nutrients through their tiny leaves, making them well suited to thin panels and vertical structures said lead biologist Damiano Ducci. Alive Labs says it's these traits that can turn blank walls into low-maintenance living surfaces that trap moisture, support small habitats, and help filter polluted urban air.
So moss is actually incredible. So people don't realise, so moss doesn't have any roots, it's non-vascular. So it takes all its nutrients from the atmosphere. So each moss leaf is a single cell thick, so it's an incredible microstructure, huge surface area, and it's able to bind to a lot of pollutants. So it has a very high cation exchange capacity. So moss can help remove NOx from our atmosphere, which is a huge problem in our cities, fine particulate matter, 10s, 2.5s and under 1s. So moss is great at binding to all of these.
So-called living walls are already used in offices, hotels, and public buildings, and many rely on soil, felt, or mineral wool system that need active irrigation and regular upkeep. Alive Labs says its moss-based panels could offer a low-maintenance alternative that can be fitted more like architectural cladding than a conventional garden wall. The test now is whether the system can prove those claims at scale outside the control setting of pilot projects.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant time ahead.